Hello and welcome to the Ethereum London Upgrade Community Call, hosted by the Ethereum Cat Herders. We have an awesome group of people today who are going to be talking about the London Upgrade. I will be co-hosted with Pooja. Pooja, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, Ethereum community. Ethereum blockchain is expecting the London upgrade to go live on the mainnet in less than 3 days. This is 11th major network upgrade on the Ethereum blockchain. And I believe that a blockchain is decentralized in true sense when every milestone is celebrated with the community. So here we are. Welcome to the London Upgrade Community Call. I'm Pooja Ranjan with my co-host Hudson Jameson. We welcome developers, researchers, client, and infrastructure providers who put us so much work behind the scenes to keep moving the Ethereum chain. The London upgrade includes months of research, development work, including many hours of testing and implementing 5 different proposals in Ethereum 1.0 chain. In the next 60 minutes, you can expect a quick summary of these proposals by the champions or authors, experience of researchers and EIP authors, along with the implementation ease and challenges experienced by different clients. We are also joined by some of your favorite tooling and infrastructure providers to share a quick presentation of the change of the user experience that you're going to have with this upgrade. And yes, we have POAP token for people watching the stream. The code will be shared during the meeting. So strap your seatbelt on the flight to London.
I like that last line. That was great. Um, and what we're going to do is talk about the outline. So we got some overviews of each of the proposals. We're going to spend about a couple minutes each on that. Then we're going to talk about every client is going to talk about, or I think every client, most of them at least, we're going to talk about what their perspective is on the release, maybe some pitfalls or challenges they've had during so, or what new things we can expect. And then we have some tools and infrastructure providers talking about some of their updates due to the London hard fork. And then we'll have a quick Q&A session, and we have a group of researchers, researchers, developers, infrastructure providers, all kinds of people here. So this is going to be a whole lot of fun. What are we starting with, Pooja? Trying to just browse through here.
Right, so we can go ahead and start with EIP's overview. So we have 5 proposals which are going to be deployed on the mainnet: EIP 1559, EIP 3198, EIP 3529, EIP 3541, EIP 3554. So let's start with Timbaiko with a brief summary for EIP 1559 and EIP 3198. Welcome, Tim. I know you have been championing proposal 1559 for a while, so let's have a quick summary of the proposal.
Sure. Yeah, so 1559 is a pretty big change to Ethereum. Hard to summarize in 2 minutes, but at a high level, what it does is it makes explicit in the protocol what the minimum amount for a transaction should be. So right now, when you send a transaction on Ethereum, there's no notion in the protocol itself of what's the right price for a transaction. It leads to kind of bids for transactions being all over the place. And if you look at blocks on Ethereum, you can see within a single block, the amounts that people pay for transactions can vary greatly. So with 1559, we can put, we're basically putting the minimum price for a transaction in every block, which makes it easier to then figure out how much you should pay for a transaction in that block. And then the two kind of ripple effects from that is that in order to be able to estimate that minimum price well, we need to double the block size on the network and try to keep blocks half full most of the time. And we also need to burn kind of that minimum part of the transaction fee for every transaction. So that's kind of a quick summary of 1559. EIP 3198 is basically a companion to 1559, which returns this minimum price for every block as part of an opcode, and it just makes it much easier for smart contracts who are basically looking at the chain to generate their transactions to figure out what's this minimum price. So it makes kind of the functionality from 1559 available at the smart contract level.
Neat. Another proposal that's going to go into London is EIP 3198, and I think Tim and Micah, you guys were slated to speak on that. Micah, is your audio working?
So I just did that one as well.
He just did.
Whoops. Should pay more
So
attention.
3198 is the one that lets you use this minimum fee or the base fee per gas from 1559 as an opcode, so smart contracts can use it.
Got it. Okay. So EIP 3529, Martin, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So that EIP, the essence of it is that we modify how refunds work. And refunds in Ethereum are basically a way that you use some gas, and towards the end of the transaction, you get that gas refunded. So it's still available in the block, and you net pay less than you actually spend. We're changing those mechanics in 3 ways. We remove the self-destruct refund. We modify the algorithm for what happens with refunds when you set the storage value to back to 0. And we also reduce the elasticity, the max limit that can be refunded during a transaction. And I won't go into it too much into details, but the 2 big changes that this makes is that previously it was theoretically possible that a block which spends 10 million in gas actually does computation worth 20 million gas due to refunds, which makes it in combination with 1559, where we can have basically gas usage being double the target in high intense times. This elasticity with refunds would make it so that we can have very large fluctuations in actual processing time for blocks, and we're trying to clamp down on that. And the other big change is that this refund change makes it so that gas tokens are no longer viable. And this is seen as a good thing among, well, most people, not everyone. But the good thing about, well, the bad things about gas tokens is that they basically hog computation resources, Ethereum resources, for speculation. That's about it.
All right, and next up we have EIP 3541 with Alex and Paul. If they're here, I think they are.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey Hudson, hey everyone. 3541 is an extremely simple EIP, which shouldn't really have any effect on anyone. It only disallows the creation of new contracts, which start with the 0xEF byte. And this byte is an unassigned instruction today. So if you would try to deploy such a contract, then it wouldn't do anything anyway. So this change shouldn't provide anything changing to anyone. However, it is a first step to a bigger set of changes. And the first one after this, we hope could go live in some future update is 3540, which introduces a container format for EVM bytecode. And why is that important or interesting is that today bytecode is just a stream of bytes. There's no structure to it. And this has, on one side, it had like some nice properties, but on the other side, it also restricted the development and improvement of EVM changes. And this 3540 change, which may be happening in Shanghai or later, will introduce a structure separating code and data, and it also makes it possible for future improvements to happen. And there are a bunch of other future improvements already published, which could potentially go live, and a bunch of other proposals are considering to build on top of this structure. But I mean, of course, none of this happens in London. I think that's the short summary.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And then finally, we have James talking about EIP 3554.
Hey everybody, EIP 3054 is moving the Ice Age back. It's a literally one line change in the client. So as far as changes goes, it's the simplest one we can possibly do. And it moves the Ice Age back to around December, which at the time we targeted for, we probably would know more about when the merge would happen at least. And if not, there may be a feature fork that might have happened or might not happen. But we pushed it back some number of blocks, basically. So pretty simple. We've done it before, doing it again.
Cool. Thanks.
It means prepare to update your client in December.
Yep.
Yes.
Update your clients in December before Christmas starts.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's it for the overview of the EIPs. Pooja, back to you.
Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone. So for people watching the live stream and even the participants of this call, to make this moment unforgettable, we have POAP token for you. To claim the token, you have to direct message a secret code word to POAP board available on Discord. The process is also available in the description section of the YouTube stream. So if people find any issues, they can go ahead and fix that. The secret code is ECH London, all in small caps. ECH LONDON. And shout out to an Ethereum Cat Herders contributor, William John, for creating the POAP design.
Yeah, and I put a really crude Microsoft Paint description of the POAP code and how to get it in the live stream. So Zoom's participants, you can't see it, but the code is ECH London. And again, yeah, it is in the description. And there's a POAP channel in our Discord. It's called POAP, but don't put the code in there to get the POAP. You have to actually DM, like private message the POAP bot. So be sure to do that if you want your code. All right. Thanks so much for setting that up, William, with the design. It looks great.
All right. Moving on.
You mentioned William, just to be clear, not me, William. It was the other William.
Oh, wait, different. Oh.
Yeah, we have been joined by a new contributor, William Jean, which I believe is also an intern at Nethermind Klein. So lately we have been getting a lot of community support. Thank you so much for joining us and helping with your contribution. Moving on, I would like to invite Barnaby Manot, a researcher from Robust Incentive Groups at Ethereum Foundation, to share his experience with work done, especially for EIP 1559, and any interesting piece that you would like to share with the community.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here. I guess from the research point of view, EIP 1559 is kind of the dream project that I think you come across like a few times, especially for me. So my background is more in game theory, mathematics. I was really drawn by the problem, this idea of congestion, this idea of auction, trying to analyze the mechanism. There's a lot of theory on both topics, but all of the theory kind of flies out the window the minute you are in the blockchain setting. You can't trust anyone. Things are very open. You have mempool shenanigans. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the dark forest. So you have to kind of pick apart all of that and understand it. At the same time, from a research point of view, you also have to maybe balance some of the expectations around the upgrade itself. Like a lot of people see many different things in the EIP that may or may not be there. So you're trying to kind of bring clarity to a topic which is definitely technical and fundamentally changes quite a lot of things to Ethereum and how it works. And maybe finally, this is more, contrasting how research is done in Ethereum is you kind of have this incentive always to be much more open, much more transparent, much more active in the discussion, and you really will rewarded for it. And I think that's a really great feeling, and it's great to have been part of this.
Thank you, PEEPanEIP. For those people who have missed it earlier, we have recorded a very informative episode on PEEPanEIP on EIP 1559 with Tim Bako, Barnaby Manor, and Michael Zoltu. It answers many questions on the proposal as well as what to expect after the merge. So it's worth watching. The episode number is 37.
Okay, so it looks like, what do we have next here? Also, I'm troubleshooting the POAP. I know a lot of y'all are getting some error messages, and it looks like I will be troubleshooting this as we go along. The client perspective, we're going to talk to some of the clients who are implementing this London upgrade and get some of their perspectives on some of the changes and how their client has come along, maybe some challenges, whatever they want to talk about with it. So let's start with Nethermind. Thomas.
Hi, sure, thanks. Yeah, so EIP 1559 was very exciting for us from the very beginning, and I think that like around May 2020 when we started researching every single thing that was written about it, and then I think for Nethermind it became very important network upgrade because it's the time when, in a way, like the whole team started taking ownership of the network upgrades. Like Nethermind got this core devs that became part of the communication between clients, became more active, and it was like no longer a bit of like a one or two people project as in the past, but we got through this like maturity stage. And so great thanks to Marek and the whole team for being so active and managing this this release for us. And yeah, I think we really cared about pushing it forward, like bringing it as soon as possible and clarifying what goes in and what can go in the future in Shanghai and Cancun. Maybe creating a bit of this rush feeling, but that's just because we wanted to make sure that like all the community will be aware, that all the tooling developers will be aware very early. They'll start feeling that this date is coming, and I think now we're just coming very safe to this date of August. What was like the last thing from our perspective is like we also could work with the XDAI team on a lot of testing. They helped us a lot with the verifying EIP 1559 in different setups. So I think that thanks to introducing this in Nethermind, we will have the EIP 1559 and other upgrades from London in all the like Aura and other networks very soon after the mainnet. So I thought that it wouldn't be possible. Thanks.
Awesome. Next up, we have the newest Ethereum client. Oh man, I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Okay, because it's not Aragorn. It's like something really close to that. Alexei, correct me. What is it?
Well, it's Aragorn. It's just six letters. Aragorn.
Aragorn. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So the name is basically from the name comes from the now extinct language. I don't know the name of the language, but it's sort of in that dead language. It means Black River. It doesn't mean particular anything. So it's just some sort of short name which doesn't mean anything and can be pronounced pretty easily, I hope. Anyway, so our perspective is that I was aware of this EIP 1559 since the very beginning, but I must say that I wasn't so much turned on what was going on for the last couple of years. I mean, of course, I saw what was happening. And we have implementation, and but what we haven't finished yet, which was basically deliberate choice, is the transaction pool implementation. We wanted to create a different implementation from what Go Ethereum has, and not just kind of copy paste it. But that is not ready yet. So although I don't think it will have a big impact, it will mean that for some time the transaction pool implementation won't be correct. But some people might have seen the design for a new transaction pool. It's actually been designed before we implement it, so it's currently being implemented. So yeah, that's the challenge. But other than that, I hope that this whole thing goes well. And I think for myself, my perspective is probably different from a lot of other people's. Is that because I like to go into the depth more than into the breadth of the things. And to me, maybe the most interesting upgrade is actually not the EIP 1559, but the I don't remember the number, but the one which prevents the deployment of the contracts with a certain byte, because I think from my point of view, this is the solution which kind of ends this period of what I call the procrastination, because this thing was needed for years prior. There was a lot of discussions. People were trying to introduce versioning. Well, you might remember we're trying to introduce the versioning into the EVM, but there was never a successful proposal of how to exactly roll it out. And I think this will be the moment to roll it out. Anyway, so that's for me. It seems like a tiny little change, but for me, I think it's the most important one. We'll see. And for the EIP 1559, I know a lot of people are excited about it, but I don't know what will happen. And I just, I have not analyzed it myself. I must say, we'll see.
Thanks, Alexei. Next, we have Geth, where we're going to have Martin, Lightklein, and Ansgar.
Yeah, why don't Lightklein, you can go first, because you wrote most of the code, at least in the original PRs.
Sure. I think 1559 is a pretty interesting EIP because it's one of these EIPs where people from all different backgrounds contribute to the EIP in different ways. And I feel like my contribution was helping implement it in the Go Ethereum client. I don't feel like I have a strong opinion on like the economic merit of these things and how these systems will play out once it goes into mainnet. And I think a lot of people who have these backgrounds like Barnaby and Tim Roughgard have done really good analysis on like the economic benefits and things to consider for the EIP. From the client perspective, I think that this is an interesting upgrade because it's one of the most rigorously tested upgrades maybe we've ever done. And the actual implementation is not something that took me a very long time to do, maybe 1 to 2 weeks to implement the base functionality to sync with the original Rhodes testnet. And we've spent almost 6 months iterating on that, small changes, bug fixes, testing, fuzzing. And I think as like an outside contributor for this EIP not being on the Geth team, I've gotten to do the really fun part and not have to deal with the really difficult parts of actually doing the really very rigorous testing and fuzzing. So I don't know, Martin, if you want to talk about some of those things.
Sure. From my perspective, yeah. So 1559 is really big. When you read the EIP, it doesn't actually look like it's that very big. But when you put it into a client, there's the consensus changes, obviously. And there's the changes to the transaction pool mechanics, and there's changes to how the RPC behaves. There are logic flow changes, basically how the miner should operate. And there are all these different parts. So in the end, we split up the 1559 implementation in, I guess, 5 or 6 different PRs. I mean, there's also new transaction format, new signing type. Yeah, so it was a huge piece of work. Regarding whether it's the most tested one, I'm not so sure actually, because it's so far. I mean, it's all over the place, and it's really not easily fussed, because in most of our fussing concerns the EVM itself, and the EVM is pretty much unaware about 1559. Many other changes we do are only basically in the EVM and are easy to fuss test, client versus client, EVM versus EVM. And as for me, I'm kind of like in the same state of mind as Alexei. I think that 3541 is a pretty significant EIP, that we have this new basically namespace or code space, so we can do more things with the EVM versioning and different types of structures for the EVM code. And I think also 3529 is going to be pretty meaningful to make some noise on the Ethereum blockchain go away. With noise, I mean just where blocks are filled with useless transactions that only fill up space. So I think that I have good hopes for those, and I'm like an interested spectator watching what how 1559 plays out.
Cool. And I know there has been some work put in by Anscar. So Anscar, if you would like to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my role really, like in the actual implementation, was quite small. I basically just as Matt kind of wrote the code before he handed it off to the Get team. I just wrote some code before I handed it off to Matt. And so, but that was really only on the transaction pool and the miner, as Martin just said. Like the EIP touches so many different areas. But like maybe just to briefly say then, like just to illustrate the EIP process, right, and why it's so hard to bring such an EIP to mainnet. I think I'm not sure when the EIP was actually first written, but it's several years ago. And so just for example, my role in this, so Tim actually reached out to us last, I think, December or something, just because there were some concerns for the EIP about how it would impact like all aspects of transaction sorting. So in the mempool, there's a lot of sorting going on, because sometimes, like, of course, once the mempool reaches maximum capacity, you have to drop off some transactions. Also, when you're mining, you have to find the most attractive transactions. When a user basically wants to bump that transaction with a higher price, you also have to like have some rules in place. And before the EIP, the logic was always very simple, because it's basically like there was only the gas price, and that's like a linear metric. So you can very simply compare two transactions, whichever has the higher gas price is the higher one. And now with 1559, this basically becomes two-dimensional, because you have like you have the tip, and you have the base fee, and then you have the max, like the fee cap, and all of this kind of interacts it in not completely trivial ways. And so this was just one of these aspects where once the clients, like client implementers, right, were to spend some time looking into this, they would very easily see like how all of this would interact and how they can take that into their clients. But in EIP, usually in the beginning, is in a stage where the client developers don't yet have the time to look into it, right? Like last December, the clients actually were still working on the Berlin hard fork. And so you need people that basically like can at least look into it a little bit and already kind of like pre-scout, is this an issue, or can this basically just feasibly go on? So this was basically like the role that we as the Quill team, before then Matt later on did all the implementation help with Get as well. But like this was the first step, just kind of like have someone who has like at least some idea of how Get works, look at it first and just say like, this can work. And so this was basically just the role that I helped with.
Thanks, Ansgar. Finally, Olga Drews from the Ethereum JS team couldn't be here, but what we've done is we have what's it called? We have a video that we can share of them explaining what's new in Ethereum JS and how they've implemented this. So let's make sure that I am sharing audio too with everybody.
From the JavaScript team.
Can y'all hear it?
Puya, thanks for having me. Sorry, I can't join this call in person, so I have to record this. So some short final update from the JavaScript team before we bring 1.5.9 in production. Great. So the JavaScript team is mainly sorry, I have to switch the slides here to the slides here. We are maintaining the Ethereum JS libraries. Richard with Ethereum is also in our team, but I've seen that Richard is actually also joining the call, so I don't need to lose too much words on Ethereum. I'll try to make it short. So on the Ethereum JS front, we've got our transaction library ready with our 3.3.0 updates a couple of weeks ago, and you can actually now instantiate also fee market 1559 transactions, as you can see in this example. Or you can also use a transaction factory we've got. So if you feed our library with some 1559 compliant transaction data, you actually get a 1559 transaction instantiated. And just mentioning this library in particular because I think this is the most used library in this 1559 context. I think maybe the most particular library update from our side. We also updated our block library, which is now aware of London blocks, or is aware of the new base fee field, and all this accumulates. On the one side, on our virtual machine, the VM also got an update to version 5.5.0. And you can now run transactions or run 1559 transactions in the virtual machine, and the VM also get updates along all these other EIPs for London. So the base fee opcode EIP gas refund reduction, and this restriction on the 0x EF bytes. One short mention: there is an imminent bug fix release on the VM. We have some wrong 1559 balance check PR outstanding. This will be happening in the next 1 to 2 days. It's kind of like it's mid important. So it's not super critical, but you might want to wait for this one bug fix release. We do also have a client ready, which we don't really promote yet, or still don't promote yet, because there is some substantial functionality still lacking, like a transaction pool. But we are actually, but we use this client heavily in our internal along our internal development, and this client is actually also capable of syncing 1559 enabled networks now. And if you want to play around with our client, you're also very much invited. There's no official release at this moment, but you can just use the latest master state. Ethereum JS also has a 1559 release out, but I would just skip this and leave all this presentation to Richard. Yeah, some exemplary mention of some ecosystem updates. Just because the Ethereum JS libraries and also Ethereum is just is often used in ecosystem or developer tooling, and so I would just mention two exemplary tools which use our virtual machine, and just as some general notion. The ecosystem or the developer ecosystem updates are actually really in a really good shape for this hard fork. We've seen various ecosystem projects really release early and in time. And I think that's really great. Just to mention too, there's Remix, for example, now has integrated this switch. You can see it here in the screenshot for the different virtual machines for the first time. That's really cool. And this is and there you can actually already switch on the live deployment of Remix to the London hard fork setting for the virtual machine. Another example is Hardhead, who also had their London ready release lately, kind of a couple of I think 1 or 2 weeks ago. And various other ecosystem providers also have had their London releases. Yeah, so really cool shape on this hard fork round. Yeah, actually, I'll leave this with this for now. If you've got further questions, particularly to our team, yeah, just reach out on our team Discord. And the team Discord is best to find via GitHub. Discord QLs are always a bit hard to share. Okay, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the call.
All right. I'm hearing some background noise. Oh, there it is. That was the Ethereum blockchain speaking to us through the ether. So next up, thanks so much for that, Olger. And they wanted to do a short clarification. They said that in the video they said that something about it being the most used 1559 library, and they meant that as not as the most used 1559 library ever, but the libraries we provide are the most important one in the 1559 context. So we're going to give an update on the POAP situation, and the update is we're still working on a fix. Any updates from you, Pooja?
Right, William is trying to get that fixed, but in the meanwhile, people, you can simply go and say hello in the POAP channel at Ethereum cat coders, and the messages will try to get them the link which is needed to mint the channel in case it does not work during the timeline. So the time to claim the bot till this meeting is live. So make sure you at least say hello in the channel so we know to reach you, and we'll provide you the link after the call, right after the call. Moving on, Micah and Lightline are two from the group of our untiring EIP editors who contributed in process specification and enforcement in the past year and a half. I don't want to miss Agzik here. I understand his contribution on the EIP editing side has been there for a very, very long time. Thank you so much for that. But I'll be curious to hear what difference, if you may have observed, in EIP standardization and network upgrade process, especially with respect to the last upgrade, the Berlin upgrade that was deployed in the month of April. Any suggestion or any best practice to be followed by authors for proposals for upcoming updates?
Just since I feel like I've missed out, everybody else got to say what their favorite EIP was, and I didn't, so I'm going to go ahead and say that. I'm really excited about 3.554, the difficulty bomb delay. I've been looking forward to this since the last difficulty bomb delay, and I'm just really happy it's happening. I think it's about time. I don't know if you have something useful to say, like, client, go for it.
I was going to let you go ahead and start with the EIP editor experience of Berlin and London, since I already got my chance to speak.
Okay, so
take up any of your time.
Since Lightline and I are clearly fighting over who gets to not talk, I'll go ahead and concede. So 1559 and 3198, et cetera, something I've learned from this hard fork is that just because an EIP has lots of authors doesn't mean that there's actually anyone championing it. So if you're going to write an EIP, I strongly encourage having a champion. What a champion means is it's someone who's very responsive and quick to merge things. One of the problems we ran into with EIP 1559, I think, is we actually had like a dozen authors on it. But the problem is because there's a dozen authors, there's no like strong ownership. And so what ends up happening is someone submit a pull request to fix something like a typo, and they'll just sit outstanding for a month. And this isn't anyone's individual's fault. It's just that I think when you've got lots of authors on an EIP, you end up with this problem where everybody thinks someone else is going to take care of it, or everybody's waiting to see if everybody else is okay with it, and you don't have like the clear leadership who's someone who says, yes, this is good, let's merge it. So for future authors, I recommend, it's okay to have lots of authors with lots of people involved, but make sure someone's designated as this is the person who's kind of in charge of shepherding this EIP through. It really helps get your EIPs through the process going forward, I think. For this London upgrade, I think this is the first one where we're fully using the new ETH1 specs repo. So that's good for me. Probably no one else cares, but I like it because I don't have to see all the pull requests and changes to the like the specification document for London as they go through, which frees up my time. So I'm a big fan. Other than that, yeah, that's it. I think things are going to go smoothly. Like we've done lots of testing. Everything seems to be going well. I'm generally happy with the process for London.
Thank you. Thank you
I can
so
also
much.
say, I can also say a couple quick things.
Please.
Yeah, so something that really resonated with me with the London upgrade is just seeing how important it is to have these specifications written as code. And if you look at this EIP 15 and 59 and EIP, but like the text itself is actually mostly this Python document that's describing the entire Ethereum world. And this has been helpful in a lot of ways of being very precise about the changes that 1559 brings. And I think that as we go forward, it's going to be helpful to do more EIPs in this way, where it's not lots of prose that's difficult to parse and interpret. And like beyond that, also just having living documents for the non-consensus portions of the upgrades. And so 1559 has brought a lot of changes to the RPC. And something that became very clear is that this is a fairly difficult thing to do without kind of a canonical place to say, this is how all clients should be implementing all of these endpoints. And that's something that we've been trying to improve for the last 8 to 12 months. And I hope that whenever we do this again with the merge and there's some changes to endpoints, that we'll have a really good place to say, this is now exactly how all the endpoints should be. All clients should implement this way. And we don't have any of these issues where some clients implement something as an integer or a hex or different things. So that's kind of been my takes, is like from the more editor position on the fork.
Yeah, maybe one thing I'll add on this as kind of the person who's coordinating all that stuff. Thomas was, I think, one of the first person who raised a while back that like for the merge, we should have really long-lived testnets. And to me, I think this is kind of the reason where we want to get to a spot where like the consensus changes are basically done. But then, you know, once that's done and we're pretty comfortable in the actual client implementations, we likely are going to need like a few months to just iterate over stuff like JSON RPC and whatnot. And it just seems extremely hard to do those two things in parallel, because when the consensus code in client is still changing, we're not even at a spot where like client devs are thinking, how do we expose this in JSON RPC? Or, you know, what's the best way and what are the impacts and the trade-offs there? So I think having kind of a two-step process where like we get like the clients running in consensus, all those chains implemented, we build a bunch of dev nets to test those. And then once we're confident that like the actual, say, merge spec won't change, that like, you know, then it's like, okay, how do we actually expose this for the libraries, the infrastructure and whatnot, and give them the time to have like 2 or 3 client release iterations. Because I think the other thing we see is like a lot of people will obviously just upgrade on like the minimal release for a fork. So, you know, they'll download like the Geth London compatible, and then they probably won't upgrade until the next fork. And if the JSON RPC endpoints are kind of not great in that, they kind of become cemented in, you know, and applications have workarounds to deal with them. So yeah, I think hopefully for the merge, we can just take more time to have a couple like iterations on it based on the end users' feedbacks.
Just wanted to slide in here real fast. We've gotten a new POAP code. It is London HF. all lowercase, one word. So anybody who's interested in claiming their POAP, again, London HF, one word, all lowercase.
Thank you so much, William. Moving on. Next on the call, we are joined by some of the popular infrastructure providers to talk about the changes in their respective projects to provide a better user experience. Let me first invite from Etherscan, Harit Kamarul.
Hello, hi. Hi, Pooja. I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay. Yeah, so just to go right into it. So on Etherscan, we made a bunch of changes. If you've been using Ropsten or Rinkeby Gorley, you would have seen most of them already. So if you go on the transactions page, if you scroll and you look for a transaction that uses the transaction type 2, 1559, you'll see this light bulb here that indicates it's a 1559 transaction. Then if you go to the transaction page, you'll see the transaction type. And if you click more, you'll see some other details that have been introduced with the 1559 EIP. On addresses, similarly, you'll see these light bulb stuff. And obviously for certain addresses, you'll see they have a lot of 1559 transactions. And probably in a couple of months' time, we'll change this UI because there might be 99% of transactions that have this. For on the block page, you'll see the base fee per gas and the burnt fees. And for transactions within a block, you'll see the same thing as well that you saw earlier. And for the main blocks page, that if you go from the dashboard, you'll see this big total burnt fee amount. To be very clear, this is just like a brief change that we're making. And after things have settled down, we'll figure out a more comprehensive UI for users. For the APIs, so we have the or parity proxy. So if you use some of these sort of endpoints that have fields introduced, I'll just do a shortcut and show what I already have here. You can see that, for example, for transactions, you can see the transaction type shown here. And these new fields that are introduced with 1559 as well. For the gas tracker API, which we've been hearing a lot of requests about, we're actually making changes right now. And we hope to have it introduced in 1 or 2 days time. So you'll be able to play around with it before the hard fork goes live. And if you want to wait for a hard fork, you can do that as well. And for the gas tracker page, we don't have it on the test nets, so we can't show it, but we'll have some minor changes with these numbers shown on the sort of header here and over here. Yeah, so you'll see that when the hard fork goes live. Finally, we do have some charts that a lot of people refer to. I do want to highlight that we won't have it ready right at the start when the hard fork goes live. Again, because we want to wait for the dust to settle down. But for example, if your friendly neighborhood Maxi comes and talks about how the Ether supply isn't showing up correctly, I can highlight to them that Etherscan is going to get it fixed, hopefully within a couple of days. But yeah, it won't be ready immediately on time when the hard fork goes live. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for me. Back to you, Pooja.
Thank you so much, Harit. I'm sure these changes are going to help simple user to understand what's going on with these new proposals. Next, I would like to welcome Yuga Kolhar. He's a staff software engineer and tech lead at Coinbase. He works on the crypto wallet team. Welcome, Yuga.
Thanks, Pooja. Hi, everyone. So yeah, like Pooja mentioned, I work on the company's hot wallet team. At Coinbase, we place a strong emphasis on security. So 98% of our customers' crypto funds are placed offline in cold storage, but whenever customers make crypto deposits or withdrawals, they flow through our hot wallet, and that's the infrastructure that I work on. Obviously, Ethereum is one of the most important blockchains for Coinbase, given the amount of activity it supports. So we've invested a lot into making sure that this London upgrade goes smoothly. All of the nodes we rely on are upgraded to the hard fork version. And we've also ensured that our internal indexing, accounting, and auditing processes are updated to account for the new transaction fee calculations involving effective gas price. In addition, over the coming week or two, we're going to be rolling out EIP 1559 transactions for customer withdrawals. We want to make sure that our customers are able to take advantage of the fee savings that come with EIP 1559 from the separation between the max fee per gas and max priority fee per gas. We've been testing these extensively on test nets for ETH sends, for ERC20 token sends, for contract cals, and so on. And we feel very ready for it. And we're very thankful for all of the surrounding infrastructure that's been supporting this, from Ethereum JS to Etherscan. In terms of what the user will see, there won't be any action required on the part of the user. This will happen automatically when the feature rolls out, so it should be a smooth transition. We'll be observing gas prices and the state of the network in the days following the hard fork, and we'll be rolling out the feature when we feel that the network is stabilized. We'll also be updating our Ethereum help page to provide a more detailed explanation of how EIP 1559 works for anybody who is interested. I definitely want to thank everyone on this call for being such awesome collaborators. It makes a lot of sense to me why Ethereum has enjoyed the success it has, given how hardworking, smart, and open-minded everyone is. At Coinbase, we've started to really embrace decentralization into all of our working processes. So yeah, I really have enjoyed working with Ethereum, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do so.
Thank you so much, Yuka. We are also joined by one more wallet, Rainbow Wallet. Welcome, Jinchong, the co-founder, and Bruno Barberi, a developer from Rainbow Wallet.
Thanks, Pooja. Yeah, so sorry to say this will be sort of like a non-update update, but as we've decided to wait until things go live to get more data on how the spikes will play out on mainnet. So we've internally mapped out a whole bunch of scenarios, but we're still debating on the best UX based on what we think users will most likely do. Essentially, we're trying to minimize showing like a huge range on the multipliers on the base fee, and instead optimize based on not just what the market's doing, but also the type of transaction or like the type of intent that a user has. So we'll be working on that shortly after the release, but we think that it'd be better if we get a little bit more data on the spikes.
Thank you so much. I know Holger in his presentation mentioned a little bit about Ethers.js, but we are joined by Richard Moore. So over to you, Richard.
Cool, thanks, Pooja. So there's not really a lot to say. I've got a few notes I'll run through quickly, but basically, for the most part, nothing needs to change. There's a few more pieces of information in the block, like the base fee, the receipt has effective gas price, and the transactions have your max fee and max priority fee. At a high level, the main one other change is there's a new feature called Get Fee Data on Providers, and this coalesces gas price and all the new EIP 1559 things, but it's also going to be a place where fee data expands in the future. So there's a fee history API call. It's not currently added to Ethers. I'm waiting to see how things pan out so we can kind of come up with a better algorithm to use that. But basically all the fee goo is going to be in that one method. And that way it's easy to make backwards compatible changes in the future. So for example, in V6, get gas price is going away, and you'll just call get fee data, and gas price will be sitting in there if you're on a network that does not support 1559 or yeah, that sort of thing. But yes, I'm excited. Basically, nothing needs to change. Ethers will auto detect whether 1559 is available and use those features if they're there. Most awesomely, 1559 just works. Like the quick anecdote I wanted to give was Ropsten, for all my test cases, it actually during the CI makes Ropsten transactions. I had to like the test cases for Ropsten always had to get the current gas price and multiply by 10 just to make sure that the transaction kind of like happened in time before the CI timed out. With 1559, I changed nothing. It was beautiful. Like I just sent the transaction and voila, it arrived on time. I didn't need to do anything weird. So the only thing you really need to do is if you're currently passing in a gas price, don't, and you should be good to go. You can obviously override max fee and max priority fee. I currently recommend not, but if you find there's issues, you're more than welcome to. I think that's all I've really got. So yeah, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Richard. So what we're going to do just to wrap up here, we're going to do a code announcement one more time. The code is London HF. If you go into the Ethereum Cat Herders Discord, there should be a user called POAP-bot. And if you just DM that user, London HF, they will send you a URL that you can click to get your POAP. I have been corrected in DMs. It is POAP, it is not POAP. I apologize to Patricio and the other POAP heads out there. So yeah, that's it for that part of the announcement. Thanks again, everybody. And it's not pronounced like soap, Micah. It's pronounced like POAP, like POAP.
I refuse.
Be a rebel then. All right, Pooji, it's to you.
Right, I have a few quick announcements. Last week on PEEPanEIP, we recorded a special episode on EIP 3675, that is Upgrade Consensus to Proof of Stake with Mikhail Kalinin. The recording is going to be released later today. If you're interested in understanding the proposed mechanism and understand how the switch is going to happen, you wouldn't want to miss the recording. We have also recorded a talk by Vitalik Buterin on blockcast limit last Friday. The recording will be coming soon. On the user developers survey, Ethereum Cat Herders conducted a survey in association with Netherlands Line a few weeks ago. We want to thank Ethereum community with overwhelming response. We have received close to 100 responses. A summary report will be published very soon on the ECH medium. I understand we need to wrap up now. I would like to sincerely thank everyone, client development team, EIP editors, researchers, and especially the tooling team for joining the call and sharing what Ethereum users can expect with the London upgrade. Thank you, William Schwab and the POAP team for saving us today. Now we have new POAP code. I request every user who are willing to get the POAP token, claim it. Last but not least, a huge thank to the loving Ethereum community for watching this stream. I hope you have upgraded your client node to the London Ready client version. And you can also double check by following the EF London Upgrade announcement blog. All the relevant links are provided in the description section of this YouTube stream. Anything from anyone?
Well, maybe just one thing that I wanted to say is for anyone listening who maybe is only following along with kind of things like somewhat semi-regularly, like you might have actually heard that both Alexei and Martin mentioned that they personally are actually more excited about this tiny EIP that you might not even have heard about, the 3541, than the big 1559. And I just wanted to like say, maybe like the lesson here is that like, sure, these meme EIPs are nice. And actually, I'm personally really looking forward to 1559 as well. But there's so much more going on behind the scenes. And like specifically this Ethereum Arbitration format is one of these examples. You might have never heard about it. And like we have like two of the authors here on the call and the Epsilon team. And like, if that's something you just have never heard about, maybe look into it a little bit. It might just be that 5 years from now, this might be the more important change than this big 1559 that everyone is talking about. So look beyond just the memes and at the actual technology. And there's a lot going on here. That's all I want to say.
Thanks, Ansgar. Sounds like there's an after party at Ansgar's house. Everyone is invited. BYOB. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Pooja, is there anything else?
That's all. Thank you so much, Hudson, for co-hosting. And for rest of the people who may be watching it later on, reach us at Ethereum Cat Herders Discord for any question related to EIP, the process, the upgrade, or anything that you would like to understand or learn about. We'll try to help as much as possible. I hope the London upgrade will be deployed on the mainnet without any issue. And on that name, it's time to conclude today's meeting. So bye for now. Thank you for being the part of Ethereum family. Thank you everyone once again for joining.